What's up guys, TMZ Weasel is back. So Conor McGregor has revisited the Khabib fight and went into detail of what happened, and I find it extremely fascinating. It's almost in the line of saying, I would have won if I didn't lose. And ultimately, it shows a magnified delusion from Conor McGregor more than your average fighter, because generally, fighters are going to be somewhat delusional. To get into the cage and fight someone who's their caliber, they have to see things not so realistic when they're in the cage. But outside of the cage, you have to come to the realization of what happened so you can learn, right? If you stay in that foggy mindset, if you're still delusional after the fight and you can never look at it realistically, you're never going to learn from the fight. How can you learn from the fight if you don't look at it realistically? If you don't look at exactly what happened so you can learn from what exactly happened, right? If you made a mistake, you have to acknowledge it and admit it so you can fix it. If you think you didn't make many mistakes, those are the things you're not going to be fixing, right? And that is essentially what Conor has been thinking about for years now. I would have thought after a year and a half or so that he would have come to realization, looked at the fight more objectively and fixed the mistakes. But the fact that still today he doesn't admit to the things that he did wrong, I will never like his chances against Khabib ever again, because I guarantee Khabib has admitted to his mistakes more than Conor has, even though he dominated the fight. The winner in this fight, I guarantee, has tried to fix more mistakes that he made in that fight than the loser did, which ultimately I believe makes it a very confident win for Khabib if they ever fight each other again, because Conor is probably going to fight Dustin Poirier. Khabib has said that Conor needs to fight Dustin Poirier at 155 in order to get a title shot. It cannot be at 170, cannot be 185. If you want to fight for the lightweight belt, you have to fight at lightweight, and that makes perfect sense. Khabib is trying to bring the sport back to more of what the hardcores want, right? Khabib is somewhat of like a hardcore fan's favorite champion, because he's the one's bringing order to everything that we're used to, and that makes the most sense. But let's look at what Conor said here. All of it is replying to some of his fans or some people just talking about his fight with Khabib. So I guess in a way I'm going to give some shout outs to some people that Conor McGregor had some replies for. So at Cyan_1997, they say, same with Khabib fight, lost fair and square, but wasn't dominated like people claim. Defended most takedowns, got knocked off balance in the second, but wasn't rocked at all. Didn't take his eyes off Khabib after that punch he's talking about. When Khabib was on top, hit mostly arms and shoulder. Motivated Conor wins. And Conor's reply to that is, on the moolah, round one's mine, outstruck 3-1, elbow knees clatters. He held on, second round was his, I landed multiple knees, one from standing after the overhand, and one from the bottom into the eye socket at the Kimura attempt. Not a scratch end of round also, I won 3 and 4 until the trip. And then at Eden_Lev, 3 was yours. I see the argument for 4 up until the trip, but what makes 1 yours? No disrespect. Conor replies with damage. Backhands force him on the fence, knee into the neck as he shot. After 15 seconds of the opening bell, heavy elbow right into the temple as he froze after the shot. Repeated clatters to the temple while he tries his mermaid wrap leg. Round 1 was pitiful from him, round 2 saved him. And then at Ryman C, this is the face of a man who won 3 out of 4 against Khabib. Obviously being sarcastic, right? And Conor replies with, yeah, not a scratch. Relaxing before I bounced up and bet his brother and his cousin round. So that is it. That is what Conor had to say about the fight. So he said he won 2 rounds. He won the first, he won the third, and he was winning the fourth up until he got taken to the ground. He's giving credit to his illegal knee that he hit Khabib with, and Conor's saying he didn't have a scratch and any of that. Conor's giving a lot of credit to everything he was doing, from backhands to clatters to the temple. Like, I don't know exactly what he's pointing to, because he didn't land that cleanly on Khabib the entire fight. Only a few shots here and there, and Khabib took him very well. Never looked anywhere out of it. The biggest punch of the fight was Khabib dropping Conor McGregor. Even though I don't think Conor was rocked necessarily, he wasn't out of his mind because of the punch, he still lost balance because of it. It wasn't a, I caught you off balance punch. That's not what it was. Conor thought it was going to be a takedown. He thought Khabib was going to come low, which is why he moved his legs away and exposed his head. The punches you don't see are the ones that hurt the most. Khabib didn't push him anywhere. He hit Conor with an overhand, and you could see Conor's left leg almost go limp. He falls because he lost feeling in his left leg from the blow to the head. That's clear evidence of a microconcussion. He got hit right in the jaw, got stunned, lost balance because of the brain sloshing around in his skull, and then he came right to immediately, right? He wasn't rocked. I won't say he was rocked, but he definitely got hurt there, right? That was by far the biggest shot. So even though Conor is giving a lot of credit to what he did, nothing he did even came close to that overhand right at all. Nothing. From the right uppercut in the third round to these clattering shots on the temple, whatever he's looking at. I think some of those clinch punches and elbows and stuff like that. From the knee to the neck, nothing he did equaled in damage and effectiveness to the biggest moments Khabib had in the fight. And we're talking about standing, right? If we go by the narrative that Conor McGregor is such a better striker than Khabib, the third round should not have been as close as it was. It was mostly standing because, yes, Conor did defend more takedowns in that round than any other round. No one is saying that Conor's takedown defense is bad. His takedown defense is actually pretty good. Far better than he used to be. But it stayed in his world because of that. And it was still a competitive fight. Whenever it got to the ground, it was never really competitive. It was either in the first round, Khabib holding him down and kind of really doing nothing about it, or in the second round, Khabib landing huge ground and pound shots, easily getting him a 10-8 round, or in the fourth round where he submits Conor McGregor. When it went to Khabib's world, the fight was never close. When it was in Conor's world, it was close. It was still competitive. And that right there tells you the general story of the fight. And general story if it goes into the rematch. So in a sense, Conor giving himself credit and bragging about the stuff he did in the fight, in a way is like a backhanded compliment to himself, right? Because he's talking about a lot of the stuff that happened on the feet. And he's convincing people how he won the stand-up game, when he shouldn't ever have to do that if he indeed was so much better on the feet than Khabib. Khabib is never saying anything like, I did this to Conor on the ground, I got him to the single leg takedown, you know, he was fighting here and there, but he had nothing for me, you know, all this stuff. Khabib is not really saying that in a technical aspect. He's just saying, I mauled him, because that's generally what happened, right? He's not going to detail to convince people that he was winning, because it does seem like Conor is trying to convince the people, or should I say, trying to convince himself, if I'm going to be a Jordan Peterson weasel here. Psychologically, he might have a hurt ego ever since that fight happened, because it was a lot more personal. He deflects a lot of what Khabib did right. You know, before he was saying it was a lucky overhand right, he deflects to him hitting Khabib's brothers and cousins, even though he was just in a fight with Khabib. But he can barely say anything about the fight. Yes, he says knees and stuff like that and little shots here and there, but he always wants to deflect it to what he says is, quote-unquote, the real fight that happened when he hit his brother and cousin. Even though he took some shots there too from the guy, I don't know how he's related to Khabib, but he jumped over the cage, the guy with the red shirt, the big guy, and frankly, I don't even think he's a fighter, and he was laying the hands on Conor McGregor as well. If he wants to talk about that's the real fight, even there, it doesn't look that good for him. The way most humble fighters go about their losses is they just admit to what happened. Privately, they go back and look at the fight. Even publicly, they do it sometimes. I made a mistake here and there. Man, I should have done this here and there. He was actually pretty strong there. I know that if I go into the rematch, I shouldn't welcome this area of the game. But I don't know what's happened. From guys who were looked at as humble losers, in Conor McGregor and Dominick Cruz, I mean, after their last losses, they did not take it that well. It almost looked like a hurt ego. Like, they couldn't admit to what happened because they were fighting someone they didn't really like. And Dominick Cruz, for an example, had one of the best speeches after a loss I've ever seen. Losing Henry Cejudo seemed to have hurt him in a different level. I know he wants to point it to the ref, but he should not be pointing it to the ref. It was his mistake getting caught by the knee. That's what most fighters he would actually say in the past. Some of these fighters, when they're fighting a more personal fight or a fighter they don't like and they lose to them, it changes their response to what happened and they deflect a lot. They live in this unrealistic world. It seems like they're convinced to themselves that they didn't lose to this guy. How could I lose to Khabib? How could I get dropped by him? It had to have been something. It had to have been a lucky punch. It had to have been I was off that night. My foot was a balloon. I would have won if I didn't lose. Like, it looks like Conor McGregor is making a lot of those excuses now, where I don't think he would in other fights. He could have done it against Nate Diaz even more, to give more excuses for his first loss to him. This one, there's like nothing he can really say because it was clear cut and he cheated in the fight multiple times. I'm talking about dozens of times. I'm talking about he made like dozens of illegal moves on Khabib and none of them got a point deducted. Right? It was almost like Khabib was fighting the ref and Conor McGregor at the same time. He was a complete disadvantage because he wasn't doing anything illegal. He wasn't doing anything he wasn't supposed to do. Conor was. And Conor was allowed to do it. Like I was talking about, the knee to the head. Khabib possibly, potentially could have gotten a Kimura on Conor McGregor in that second round and finished it. And there were moments in the third round, I believe, it was either third or end of the second, where Conor was holding onto the cage and holding onto Khabib's glove and not allowing Khabib to secure the takedown. It's almost like in a boxing match where you're fighting an opponent who's only getting warnings because he's elbowing you in the face whenever you guys clinch up. This guy's able to do things that you're not allowed to do. Think about it like this. If Khabib played that same game with Conor McGregor, if he played dirty, if he could have made the same amount of illegal moves that Conor did without getting a point deducted, Conor would not be talking about the knee on the ground. Because we're talking about headbutts and soccer kicks and stomps and gouging and a bunch of stuff that Khabib can go to because he has the more dominant position. Khabib can easily play this game and say, I could have stomped your head in. You say I didn't do damage in the first round, I could have kept headbutting you if I played your game. He could absolutely go that route as well. But Khabib seems to be a little bit more humble than Conor McGregor, and it's a little bit frustrating seeing from Conor because as a Conor McGregor fan, I love to see him improve in his game. And I love to see a rematch with Khabib and it being very competitive. That's honestly what I want to see if they ever fight again. I want it to be competitive because it shows more of their skill sets and it shows the evolution in their game. But given the mindset of Conor McGregor and what we're able to see, it looks like he would never make the Khabib fight competitive, even though he absolutely can defeat Khabib with the right approach and the right game plan. And that is what is frustrating for a Conor McGregor fan. So leave a comment below. What do you guys think about this? What do you guys think about Conor McGregor's response? And like 2 years later, still thinking the same thing. Cannot be healthy, right? And I'll see you guys in the next video.